All right, 7 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting of the Carver School Committee to order on February 8th, 2021 at 7 o'clock exactly. Would you all please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. All righty, so our second piece of business is a recognition of Shane McColgan for Project 351, or the Project 351 Ambassador.
Hi, Shane.
Shane, would you mind-
Shane, if you turn your video on, that'd be great. Hey, Shane, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. So we're happy. We're glad to have you here tonight. So congratulations to Shane, who's been selected to represent Carver Middle High School as our Project 351 Ambassador. Project 351 is a program that's run by the state where they pick one eighth grade student from each community, hence 351 communities in the state of Massachusetts, to represent their community at statewide for community service opportunities. The school district selects their ambassador. It's generally a vote of our teaching staff. And the selection criteria are based on leadership, kindness, and willingness to give to others. We've been involved in Project 351 for many years, and I cannot think of a more deserving representative than Shane McColgan. Shane, is well known throughout the community for all his work through Shane Gives Thanks and the Carver Food Pantry and the Pay and Packs program and all the great things that he does. So he's truly been a leader who's demonstrated his willingness to give to others since he was in the elementary school, since he was early grades in the elementary. So what happens is the Project 351 ambassadors have the opportunity to participate in community service type activities really around the state throughout this year. So he serves as an ambassador for all of this year. We'll have the opportunity to participate in community service, and then we'll also be tasked with kind of bringing a community service project back to Carver. Though, as I said, he already has his own community service project that he runs all the time. But I'm sure Shane will probably pick on something different. So Shane, we just want to recognize you really for all you've done for the community of Carver. And like I said, I cannot think of a more deserving representative for Carver Math Project 51. So Shane, I don't know if you want to tell us a little about your involvement in the program so far.
Yeah, I can tell you a little bit about it. So Project 351 unites 8th graders from the 351 communities all around Massachusetts. And I was thankfully honored by you guys, which I'm really happy about. Thank you so much for it.
You're welcome, Shane.
Shane, we lost you for a second there. Looks like we lost Shane's audio for some reason.
Oh, Shane, can you hear us?
And crayons.
Oh, there you go.
Collecting items like clothing, shoes, and financial donations.
Shane,
yes.
Shane, we lost you for a second. So if you can go back a little bit, that would be great.
Yeah. Spring service starts April in support of the Crayons and Crayons, collecting items such as clothing, shoes, and financial donations. May is a hope and gratitude walk where I will have community members walk or run 3.51 miles in support of a non-profit organization. September marks the 9/11 tribute service honoring our fallen veterans. Then December is the one I am most excited about, the ambassador commitment to end hunger in our town, which we all know I am passionate about. I am also excited to work with the community, students in our Project 351. I know a simple act of kindness can change the world. That's why I started doing this 7 years ago when I started doing the food baskets for this town. and thankfully got what's the word chosen. Thank you. Chosen to be part of this project. I'm just really happy. Thank you.
All right, thank you,
That's
Shane.
great.
I don't know if anybody
Thank
else
you,
would like to go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, Shane, thank you for serving, and you definitely are the perfect pick for our ambassador for this program. You know, you for all you've done for the community and everything your family's done. I mean, you definitely should be proud. I know we're all proud of you. And Shane just has just such a kind and, you know, unselfish heart and giving heart, you know, and I think that you'll be perfect for this. And some other kid around the state will say, hey, maybe I saw him on the news, you know, because everything you guys are, it's just mind blowing, all the stuff you guys do. And I really appreciate it. So thank you again, Shane. You're welcome. Anybody else?
I'll just say thank you,
Okay.
Shane, for coming on and sharing with us. You really are an inspiration to all of our community and all of the children in our community that, you know, if you have a goal and you have something you want to accomplish, you can do anything you set your mind to. So thank you for all you do, and thank you for coming on tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you for choosing me for this project.
Okay. Anybody else like to say anything? Okay. Let me see. Hold on. All right. Not seeing anyone right now. Okay, Shane. Well, thank you very much for coming on and giving us that update. And we look forward to hearing from you in the future about the 351 program and your duties as ambassador.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Shane.
Okay. Thank you, Shane.
I just want to, sorry, I missed this at the beginning of the meeting,
Yep.
so I just want to hit on this point that reminder this meeting is being held virtually in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts March 12th, 2020 order, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, and that we are doing the meeting through the Zoom webinar format. So we are moving up towards comments from the general public. If anybody in the general public is interested in commenting, if they could put that into the chat at this time, that would be greatly appreciated. While we look to see if anybody puts that in the chat, I'm going to remove Shane as a co-host.
Okay. So if anybody has a comment tonight, you'll just follow Mr. Neef's instructions there and put it into the chat, and we'll recognize you. I don't see anybody yet. Do you see anybody, Meredith?
I do not see anything in the chat.
Okay, then. All right, then we'll move to comments in the APC.
Okay, so let me bring Tammy in. Promote her to a panelist. All right, Tammy, you should be able to turn. Yeah, you should be able to turn your screen. There you go.
This is
Thanks,
good
Tammy.
practice, Scott. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a show coming up. I know I shouldn't probably plug it right now, but the Middle School
Oh,
Drama
since
Club.
you brought it up, you can plug
Can
it.
I now bring it up?
Absolutely.
Well, go
So-
ahead, yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
show.
So we've been working all this year on the Middle School Drama Club on a performance. It's called Being a Middle Schooler in 2020, and it's a set of monologues written by our students, depicting representing each month. So February 26th at 6 p.m. we're going to have a webinar, and then on the 28th at 1 p.m. It's going to be lots of fun. So
Very good.
that was me, the middle school drama advisor. Now I'm putting my EAPC hat on. So we've made it halfway through a very challenging year. So I'd like to take this time to express my appreciation to my colleagues. For, as you know, they've been working tirelessly throughout the year, revamping lessons, adapting their pedagogy to the different and ever-changing learning environments, and how they've rallied around the community at large, while at the same time managing the challenges within their own families. I'd also like to take this time to express my appreciation to our administrators, for they have been working tirelessly throughout the year, bringing it all together, working to create a healthy and safe learning environment that benefits our school community and beyond. I'd like to take this time to express my appreciation to our school committee members, for they have committed themselves to understanding the needs of the entire school community, which is backed by science and has been truly in the best interest of our students. Being a leader of educators, I've had the opportunity to meet regularly with other leaders across the state. I feel very fortunate to be working in Carver, where our educators' voices have meaning. Our school committee has shown their understanding that we, as educators in Carver, have always put the best interest of the students in the forefront. They know firsthand, because most have or have had children in our schools. Our goal as educators is to do our best to educate all the children we have in our charge to the best of our ability. All educators know that this cannot be done effectively if the health and safety of our students and families are at risk. The empathy teachers demonstrate goes beyond the classroom walls. We always consider mental health and wellness as a family unit. We all want to go back to the classroom with all our students when we know it's safe. Over 80% of the school staff are willing to partake in the pool testing that is being offered by our district. It is our belief that by providing more information, the testing will enhance the safety of our buildings. Educators are the third tier of the second phase of the vaccine enrollment for the state. This means educators should start being vaccinated in March. One teacher being vaccinated not only protects that teacher from becoming ill, it also protects the people they come in contact with within the classroom. In my case alone, this protection includes 54 children and their families. That's just one vaccine shot. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel and look forward to having all our students in person when it's safe. Not only do I extend my gratitude to my colleagues, administration, and school committee, I'd also like to add how grateful we are for the support we have received from our students and families. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thanks, Tammy.
Okay, so now we move on to student council update with Quentin Kittredge. Is Quentin with us tonight?
Yep, Quentin's here, and he's, let me make him a co-host. Hey, Quentin, how you doing?
Hi, Mr. Neef. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Quentin.
Alrighty. Mr. Neef was shared our spell book today from Mr. Tresca, my student council advisor. As I talked about last time when we were, last time I was in the meeting, I brought up our spell book. The spell book is replacing our virtual book, that our physical book that we usually bring to our MASC meeting, which is the meeting of all Massachusetts student councils at the hotel in Hyannis. So this year we did an online type book, and it's called the Spellbook, and this is our Carver High School Spellbook that I'd like to share with you all.
That's great, Quentin. Just, I'll try my best to move the slides at the right time, but if you need me to move on, just say, Mr. Neef, next slide.
Awesome. So how did we create magic this year? So the big thing we wanted to be able to do was connect how we dealt with COVID and how we went through all of our issues throughout the year, because everything was difficult with dealing with COVID, with dealing with all of these new rules and laws from the school, but also from Massachusetts on when we could do things, what we could do, and it was just difficult for us. So what we did is we just tried to make the best of it, and we always just tried to lift spirits and just try and make better days out of the school days, because we know it was difficult on everyone, whether you didn't have all your students in your cohort, like all your friends, and we know it's difficult for everyone. So we tried to create things throughout the summertime, but as also during the school year, just to bring students together. We can go to the next one. Members. We did very well this year with the amount of members that we had. We understood that it was very difficult for most people because everyone had their own issues with COVID, whether they have family members that could get extremely sick, whether themselves, or just getting sick in general was always dangerous. So having new meetings, which were virtual instead of in person, was difficult, but it was still the best thing we could do. And students still found a way to enjoy it. We always tried to make little fun lessons that we had with the students, or try to play games through the on our calls, just to make it better for everybody. Growth, awesome. Growing was going to be difficult because trying to get the word out there when you're not seeing students every single day is always difficult. So what we wanted to talk about was show how we can grow even with difficulties, because we all do that when we grow up, and like whenever you're graduating from high school like I am this year, or just growing in general as a person, we understand there's always going to be difficulties, and we just want to show what type of difficulties we went through throughout COVID. Imagination, we used imagination as our centerpiece because as our second to last slide, sorry, well, third to last, but this one's most important in my opinion, because imagination is how we planned everything. We had to use our imagination to be able to make everything successful, and we knew that. So imagination was like very important for everyone because we had to deal with the COVID protocols, like I said, but we also wanted to make sure everything was safe for students, the teachers, everybody. And we also wanted to make sure everyone would enjoy it. The next one. Charities was the biggest thing that we could do with working with charities outside the school instead of working with just inside the school. So the two big charities that we did was Make-A-Wish and the care packages. Make-A-Wish, what we did was we decorated the school this year for Valentine's Day. We put a bunch of hearts with students' names on it. We also did the Make-A-Wish, which was decorating doors, all of the teachers' doors. And we got a total of $1,500 in donations for that charity. And then for the care packages, we set our record from last year. And so this year we made 149 care packages. Charities were very important to us because we knew that we weren't going to have a lot of time to do big events. So we tried to make the things that we could do the biggest we could. Attendance, this is just the lineup of last year and this year with showing up to student council events. So Haley Kaczynski, she's our student council president, and she went to the MASC Hyannis like everybody else did on this list, which was last year. But also she went to all of the virtual conference calls since they only allowed certain students to be able to join. So we had our president go for us. We can go to the next one. And this is the final one. This is our reflection. And it's just saying how grateful we are for everything that we've been able to do and hopefully going to be able to do, talking about every difficulties we've had throughout the year. And we understood how much it affected everyone. We just wanted to make that impact on everyone. And our impact what we call lollipop moments. Every event that we have, we want to make sure that we have that one moment for one individual that just makes them happy. And we can use that to go on to the next event to say, all right, we did something for somebody. Let's go do another event, do it for one more person, 2 more people, 3 more. It's just that lollipop moment is what we call it. And that's our spell book.
Great, thank you very much, Quentin.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Anybody have any thoughts or comments for Quentin on the spell book? Look through my list here.
Stephanie raised her hand.
Stephanie, okay, Stephanie, go ahead.
No worries. I just wanted to say thank you so much, Quentin, to you and to all of your student council members. I know how much work it took to not only put the spell book together this year, but how much creative energy you all had to expend to really be able to make an impact, given the whole pandemic situation this year. So I just wanted to applaud you and please bring that back to your student council and let them know that I'm sure I'm speaking for everyone when I say how much we appreciate how much effort and time has gone into this. And I've heard wonderful things, and it was great to see some of the pictures that were shared. So I just really wanted to say thank you and to commend you all on your hard work. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie.
You're very welcome.
We love doing these types of charities and these events because it's the one thing we can do to show how great we are as a student council, but also how great we are as a school.
Okay, anybody else? Seeing none. All right, Quentin, I also want to say thank you very much. That was a great presentation. I agree with you on the imagination page being the most important. I mean, if one good thing comes out of COVID, if it's having kids use their imagination for these projects, I think that's a good thing. I mean, when we see so many people look at their devices all day, and it kind of takes the imagination out of people, but it took imagination to invent this. So, it wasn't too long ago that we didn't even have these, so it all came from imagination. So anyway, thank you very much, Quentin, and thanks for joining us as usual.
Thank you, guys.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Okay, we move on to approval of minutes from December 10th, 2020. These are open session minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to accept the December 10th, 2020 open session minutes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion, corrections, concerns on these minutes? I don't see anybody. Okay, where's Stephanie? There she is. No, okay. All right, so seeing none, I will move to a vote. This is a roll call vote. I'll call your names off. Stephanie Clarity,
Stephanie Clarity, aye.
Jim Pratt,
Jen Pratt, aye.
Jason Greenwood.
Jason Greenwood, aye.
Okay, and Andy Cotterelli, aye. It's unanimously accepted. We now move on to communications. I don't know if we have any communications.
We do not have any specific communications this evening.
Okay, I didn't see anything under there. So we go to reports from the superintendent. Personnel updates.
A personnel update. Since we last met, we've had 2 hires. Ron Griffin, who we introduced at the last meeting, is the Chief of Operations and Finance Officer, and Megan Wolf as an ESP supporting our remote students at the elementary school level. So that's our only personnel movement over the last 2 weeks.
Okay, well, welcome. We met Ron already, but welcome Ron and welcome Ms. Wolf. Hope you have a long and successful career here in Carver. All right, so we move on to MCAS testing, item B.
Okay, so I want to give the committee a brief update on MCAS for the spring of 2021. So in the last couple of weeks, there was a lot of questions going into the new year, coming into January, if what was going to happen with the MCAS exams this year. So over the last couple of weeks, some information has come out from the Department of Education. There's still a lot of unanswered questions. So I'll give you the general overview of what we know right now, and then we'll talk about some of the questions that are still open in terms of MCAS for the spring of 2021. So DESE recently announced that they plan to move forward with a modified version of MCAS testing this spring. I did put 2 quotes here from Commissioner Riley, just highlighting the department's position on why it's important to move forward with the MCAS exam. And I will read them. The department continues to believe the MCAS test is a crucial diagnostic tool to promote student success and educational equity. And we remain committed to administering the assessment this spring while recognizing the need for adjustments and flexibility. So we'll see that there are some adjustments. There is some flexibility. Some of the rules and guidance have changed, especially for our upperclassmen at the high school level. So we'll go over what we know at this time about that this evening. Second piece, the MCAS test will give Massachusetts educators and families critical insight into academic losses that need to be addressed this spring and summer, and data on which students and districts have been the most impacted by the disruptions in schooling caused by the pandemic. So these are the kind of the key focus points of the commissioner's letter, really to the community of Massachusetts on why the department has decided to go forward with MCAS testing this spring. So starting off grades 3 through 8. So they're going to do reduced testing time, what they're calling a session sampling approach. And in essence, students in grades 3 through 8 will only take 1 session of ELA and math, and students in grades 5 and 8 will take 1 session of science. Typically, the MCAS exam is 2 sessions in each of those areas. So it's going to be a modified test. It's going to be reduced. And they're saying they're going to pick out kind of sampling of key questions that are going to help identify, some of the maybe lack of growth of students or exemplify the growth of students. So they're saying if we take these key questions, give students 1 session with what we think are the most essential questions, they'll give us a good indication in terms of where students stand based on the spring assessment. They have established the testing windows. So the elementary school and the middle high school have not established testing dates yet. Like I said, this information just came out in the last couple of weeks. The administrations in both buildings are going to be actually working on building the exact test dates and test schedule. That will be released by the building principals. So Mrs. Maestas, Mr. Schultz will be releasing when the tests are going to occur. But I just want to give the community the testing windows. So for ELA, for 3 through 8, it's between April 5th and May 7th. For math, between April 26th and May 28th. For science, between April 27th and May 28th. At the high school level, competency determination. So as we all know, in order for a student to graduate and earn a diploma in a Massachusetts public high school, students have to pass a science, a math, and an ELA MCAS exam. And when you do that, they call it a competency determination, a CD, saying you've met your competency. We've made a determination that you've reached the appropriate level in these subject areas. The majority of this year's graduating class, the class of 2021, have already completed their MCAS requirements because they took their MCAS prior to COVID times. So they took their Intro to Physics Science MCAS in the spring of 2018. They took their ELA and Math MCAS in the spring of 2019. And as we've shown through previous, presentations to the committee, our students generally do very well on the MCAS exam. Very few students don't meet their competency determination their first time through. So the majority of the class of 2021 passed the exams in 9th grade and in 10th grade, and they're all set. What the state has done, because they did not give an MCAS last year, and they haven't given up the makeup exams since COVID started, members of the class of 2021 haven't had the opportunity to pass a makeup exam. So what they said is for any student who has not met the MCAS requirements, they will meet the standard. They'll earn their competency determination by passing a high school class in a tested area. So junior or senior year math or English class, or physics, biology, or chemistry. So if they can show their competency determination through the work they do in school. For grades 9 through 11, grade 9. So for grade 9, they are still required to pass all their MCAS exams to graduate. So they are going to be giving the full Intro to Physics MCAS exam in the spring of 2021. And then obviously, hopefully the projection is that we're going to return to some normalcy and definitely next year into full return to normalcy, and that students would take their ELA and Math MCAS in the spring of 2020. So as of right now, they have not changed the graduation requirements for grade 9. For students in grade 10 and 11, the intention is to have them take their ELA and Math MCAS this spring. They are not required to take a high school MCAS exam to meet the standard. So they can earn their competency determination by passing a high school science course, Intro to Physics, Biology, or Chemistry. So the expectation is they'll take the MCAS exam and earn their CD through passing a high school science course. So the expectations are kind of a little bit different for each grade level, 9 through 12. Since we do have the spring MCAS exam coming up as a full exam for high school students, we're in the process of preparing after-school support programs for students to give them extra preparation to help them prepare for the upcoming exams in the spring. So, what's still, and these questions are big questions. They have not yet released the testing window or dates for the high school exams. So we don't know when that's going to happen. And there is still some, the Department of Education in the States definitely says they're going forward. I still think there's some thought out there that may change. And as an example, the original plan that they had presented, the Department of Education presented in the fall, was that they were going to have juniors and seniors who had not yet passed math or English. They were going to allow them to take an MCAS exam in January. And then as we got closer to that time, they canceled that test administration and said, there's right now, with where we stand with the pandemic and with COVID and the models schools are in, and the number of students who are out because of the number of cases, really statewide at this time, that they just made a decision to not go forward with the exam. Right now, I do believe they are going to go forward, but they have not actually established the testing window or the testing dates. Typically at the high school level, especially for your exams where you're required, the exams you're required to pass for graduation, they give the exam on a specific date. So the ELA exam typically would be given in March, and the math exam would typically be given in in May. And we don't have any of those dates yet. There's actually still some question. There's been a consideration of, instead of giving students the new MCAS exam, which everyone had transitioned to, there was a consideration of having students take the old legacy MCAS exam. So that's still a question. As of this time, there is no plan on how we're going to administer the exam to students who are remote. So obviously we have a population of students in the district who have selected to be remote students. The test is an online test, but the expectation is that the test is monitored and proctored. It's not just going to be sent to the remote students. Well, we don't know what the plan is, so I shouldn't start speculating what the plan is going to be or not be. There's a big question mark on how are students who are fully remote going to participate in spring MCAS exams, and there is no guidance yet out on that. And as I said, the plan has shifted throughout January, December. There's still concerns that it's going to shift as we move forward. So this is kind of where we stand and the information we have right now about the MCAS exam. Since this has all come out in the last couple of weeks, there's been some news stories about it. I just wanted to share with the committee and the community what the planning is. So the thought process should be right now, grades 3 through 8, we have the testing windows. The school administration will be putting out the testing dates of when they plan to administer the exam and the plans for that. The high school tests, we don't have the testing windows yet, but the plan is to move forward. And we have to kind of answer that question of what's going to happen with the remote students and how that's all going to occur. So as I said, there's still a lot of questions out there, but this is the current information we have. And I guess I would take any questions at this time.
Okay, Jason.
Did they talk about accountability at all?
So yes, there's not going to be an accountability standard tied to these exams.
Okay.
So the goal of this exam is really just progress monitoring. The goal is to determine possible loss of students. They're not going to be holding districts accountable and giving districts ratings in the accountability system based on the spring assessment.
Okay, anybody else?
Jason, thank you. That's a good point to bring out.
Jen or Stephanie? Okay. Yeah, thank you for that update. Scott, did they mention anything about when they were going to roll out or if they're going to roll out an MCAS test for civics or history?
No, there's been no discussion about a civics or history MCAS exam. Well, there's been a lot of discussion over the last 20 years about a civics and a history exam, but I'm not aware of any plan or time frame to roll out that exam or make it a graduation requirement.
And that's fine, but I know the legislature passed, as we've spoken about many times, legislature passed a
yeah, they updated
civics
curriculum, and
yeah, so you have the kids have to take at least, I forgot how many classes it is, but they have to pass a civics requirement to graduate. I was just curious about that. Okay, well, go ahead, Scott. Sorry.
I thought Jason was raised his hand, but I think he put it down.
No, well, I was going to just say, like, they have a performance test they have to do as part of that civics curriculum and multiple grade levels. So, I mean, it's that's a whole different discussion, but there is accountability, like, at the civics level, just not at the MCAS level, right?
So does that come from the state, Jason, or is that coming from the communities, the schools themselves?
I was under the impression that was part of the state when they rolled out the new civics curriculum, that was part of it.
It is part of the requirement, but the state doesn't create. It's locally designed and administered. So we're doing a civics project in grade 8 and 10, but it's locally designed and administered.
I remember seeing the wording.
We actually showed you some of the presentations last year. We had some of the students come in and do their civics.
Right.
And actually, Andy Andy's asked, is that be a possible topic in the future?
Yeah, again, just an update, see what, how the kids are doing with that
Yep.
during COVID and these times. Okay, anybody else is all set? Just one more check. Okay, we're all set. So we will go on to item C, biweekly metrics. We'll start with the weekly metrics. We got the DPH report for 2/4, attendance tracking and COVID dashboard.
Okay, so we'll start with what's been reported by the Carver Board of Health, and just remembering that the Carver Board of Health is presenting, what's happened over the last 7 days in the past week. So in the past week, there's been an active or new case count of 33 cases within the community of Carver, representing 23 homes and 23 households. And what we're going to see, so as an overview of the data, we're going to see that things are trending in a better direction. So the numbers are down a little bit. They're still comparatively high if you look over time, but there's a little bit of a trend down across the board. So when you go into each of the individual towns we've been tracking, Carver's numbers are down a little bit. So the DESI report over 2 weeks is reporting an active case count of 81 over 2 weeks, with 91 positive tests in Carver, with a percentage of positivity of 7.53, which obviously, if you look over the last month, the 81 is trending down from where we were, 3 or 4 weeks ago at 102 cases. But it's interesting comparatively. If you go back to the spring, although it's not the spring, go back to the fall, we were looking at less than 5 cases. So in that long-term comparison, there's still a lot of cases happening within the Carver community at this time, but the data is trending downward over the past week or two. And that's actually consistent, as you look at each of the communities. You'll see a similar pattern where the data is trending down a little bit from where the high was 3 or 4 weeks ago. So this is looking at Kingston. That's gone from a high of 200 cases to 92. Percentage of positivity from 9.86 to 5.4. And as I said, we can go through each community and kind of see that. Middleborough went from a high of 281 a couple weeks ago to 176 active cases, percentage of positivity from 10.3 to 5.95. I won't read every district to you, you can see the numbers, but I will say that when we've looked at this data, what's happening in Carver is generally pretty consistent with what's happening with communities around us, whether we're trending up or trending down. And then the long-term picture, obviously you look at all these communities who've been in red for really 2 months with a high number of cases. And that is true for Carver as well. Plimpton did come back after only being red for 2 weeks. Has dropped down back to a yellow status. I think they're the only ones on the South Shore. Plymouth, same pattern. The cases are trending down a little bit, but still very high. An active case count of 550 with a 6.7% of positivity. And Rochester, we see that same pattern. And I know I showed you this last week, and I think it is a good representation. 2 weeks ago, I think this data for WCVB keeps on their website it's just good to see the trend data. So looking at number of cases. So newly reported case yesterday was actually down significantly. The number's been around 3,000. It was 1,276. But these are the graphs that I think are just helpful in terms of us looking at where things are trending. So obviously there was obviously a second surge, and every map that you look at on this website, and all this data is extrapolated from that state report. That's where WCVB is taking this data from. So that same state report that we look at, that's where everything is from. And obviously there was a clear second surge, but the evidence is that maybe we're starting on the backside of the second surge. Percentage of positivity, same thing. Clearly there was a second surge, but it looks like over the last couple of weeks we're trending down on the second surge. map, which the state doesn't put in their report anymore. Because there's probably because there's a lot of red on that map, and still obviously a huge cluster of red in our area. Same thing, deaths, not that we want to look at the death number, but that same, so obviously we see that same trend of the second surge, but maybe, hopefully, we're on the backside of that second surge. Hospitalizations, you see the same pattern.
Scott, do they break down by the age on hospitalizations? I forgot about if they did that in the last presentation.
They do that. I did show that one time. I didn't bring it up. I believe that's in the daily report. So if you, I think if you go to the Department of Public Health does the weekly report, and then they also do a daily report. I believe the daily report has the breakdown of age for hospitalizations. This report just has ICU capacity. You can look at every hospital in terms of how many people are in ICU. But it doesn't give you the age.
Yeah, I just didn't know if there was a toggle switch there for that.
Yeah, so there's not.
Okay.
So obviously, my intent here is to show you those graphs and that whole concept of, whichever indicator you're looking at, whether it's number of cases, hospitalizations, number of deaths, percentage of positivity, all that data shows that, beginning in mid-December, through the beginning of February, we were really in the second surge. And now there is some early evidence that we're coming out of the second surge that people have talked about for a long time. So, and I know sometimes we've stopped. So I don't know if people want to stop after kind of look at those two or just keep going.
Yeah, no, so let's ask if anyone has a question or a comment on what we've seen so far. I'm sorry, I have to scroll down through the members here to see everybody. Okay, no one. Let's go ahead, Scott.
Yep.
Thank you for reminding me, though.
I know we've looked at this. We've looked less at this document because that's not good. My link didn't work.
Really going to look less at it now.
So we're going to look less at that document. But ultimately, what's in the weekly metrics and what we just looked at the WCVB website report, all that data is pulled right from
Department of Public Health.
Yeah, this link is still giving me nothing. All right, so we'll go on to attendance tracking. The only thing we've looked at that other report the last couple of meetings has just been number of people in quarantine statewide. And then that's kind of the number we've been looking at there. Okay. So where we stand in terms of the number of attendance and number of active COVID cases. So as of today, we have 13 active COVID cases. As people probably know, I sent out 2 emails over the weekend. We had 6 positive cases. 4 of those cases had close contacts. So right now we have 13 students as actively COVID and 57 students quarantined throughout the district. We have 1 staff member and 6 students quarantined. This number's not on here, but I gave it to you last time, and I'm going to start tracking it. Is the 2-week period from January 11th to January 25th, we had 26 positive cases within the school community. Since our last meeting, from January 26th to today, we've had 18 positive cases in the school community. And I'll talk about this a little bit more when we get into our next discussion about transitioning models, but I guess I want to hit on it now, is that I do think we need to see those numbers come down a little bit before we can really look at bringing back students full in person, solely from the concept of number of people quarantined and operationally being able to operate our buildings. I've said at our last meeting that there was a couple of days where we were close, and obviously we all know that we had a cluster, or I shouldn't say a cluster, but we had a number of students quarantined at the middle high school and staff quarantined at the middle high school that required us to go remote in that building for a week. And the reality is more students full in person is going to lead to more close contacts. I don't know if it's going to lead to more positive cases. I hope it doesn't. it's going to lead to more close contacts when we have positive cases. And if we had voted, 3 weeks ago or a month ago to go full in person, honestly, I believe right now we'd be remote because our number of close contacts would cross that threshold, which we've kind of said it. At the middle high school, it was 10%. We had 10% of our staff and 10% of our students as close contacts. And so that made it hard to operate. And that's a concern with, so if we're still actively having 18, 20, 26 cases in the school on a biweekly basis in a full in-person model, our close contacts, I'm not going to say they're going to double. I don't know that. It's definitely going to be more. It's not going to be less. And in some of these cases, as we've talked about before, in some of these cases that are positive, the hybrid model keeps us from having close contacts because the students aren't in school. So generally, we've had this discussion of, well, how do we have all these cases and no close contacts? And we have all these cases and no close contacts because either the person's following the protocols, they've been identified as a close contact to somebody else, and they're not in school, or they're not in school because of the hybrid model. So ultimately, when there are positive cases, the more students that are in school, the more close contacts you're going to have, which could possibly lead to a shifting to remote just based on the sheer numbers. And looking back over the last 6 weeks, if we had been in a full in-person model, I think we would have been forced to shift to remote. We did have to do that for a week at the middle high school. I think we would have been forced to shift to remote on other occasions during that time. And that's just a consideration. Now, you have to balance that consideration off with all the data that I just said, that it looks like we're coming down the backside of the second peak, the second surge. And hopefully we are coming down the backside of that, and that we'll see that bear out over the next few weeks, which would definitely be supportive of us trending in the right direction and having fewer positive cases in school, which then would lead to fewer close contacts, et cetera, and would be supportive of bringing more students back in a full in-person model.
Scott, Jen had a comment or a
Yeah.
question.
I do. So on that tracker, Scott, where it showed the 57 students in quarantine and 13 positive, do you have that broken down by school?
Not in front of me, no. So this is a district-wide. So
Okay.
as I said, I could get that number, but I do not have it right now.
Does the dashboard have numbers? But I thought we had something by school.
Yeah, the dashboard does it by school, and the
Okay.
dashboard the dashboard will be updated tomorrow evening.
Okay.
So when I look at and maybe we have to change when we do the dashboard to align with the meetings. So this dashboard is reflective of Friday. The dashboard does break it down by school. It does not account for our 6 positive cases over the weekend. Our
Okay.
6 positive cases over the weekend led to, don't hold me to a hard number, somewhere between 20 and 25 close contacts, and then 4 staff members. So the students were somewhere between 20 and 25, staff members were 4. So between 20 and 30 overall close contacts will be added to this when we look at it, when it gets updated tomorrow. So maybe it might make sense for us to change when we update this. We did Tuesdays and Fridays because it was kind of a balance. So these are Friday's numbers. So we do track this by school. It's not reflective in this document.
Scott, when do they publish the numbers on the dashboard? What time of
Tuesdays
day?
and Fridays.
No. What time of day?
End of the day. So basically we have to wait until the nurses, before they leave, send us the updated numbers on Tuesdays. And then Gina and I take a look at them, and then they get posted. We were saying at 4 o'clock that it would always be updated by 4 p.m. And then we've had some situations where we found out a positive case at 3:45, and then we want to have the dashboard be accurate, so it gets updated at 6 o'clock. So we've kind of now just said it's updated by the end of the day on Tuesdays and Fridays. So these are Friday's numbers, which definitely were better because we when we posted this, we didn't have the 6 positive cases that happened over the weekend that led to all those additional close contacts.
Would it be feasible to update the dashboard before our meetings?
Yeah, I mean,
Time-wise and staff?
we could update the dashboard whenever we want to update the dashboard, really. So yeah, so on a week of a meeting, we could do it on Monday and Tuesday. I mean, I think people have gotten used to Tuesday, Friday dashboard update. They're in that mode. But we could do it on a meeting week. We could do Mondays.
All right, how's everyone else feel about that? Jen, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the dashboard's informative. I just was more looking at those numbers and trying to figure out a break, if there was, concentration at one school or the other.
Yeah, Jen, right now, I can't give you hard numbers, but I can say it's pretty even.
Okay.
I think, I don't know the exact breakdown, but I know it's at least 20/20. It's 57 there, so that's 60. So I know that doesn't add up, but I know it's not lopsided. So, for example, a time when it was lopsided was that when we closed. So that stretch at this one, 78, when we closed this week of the 19th at the middle high school, this was primarily at the middle high school. And the elementary, I think the elementary school may have only had like 1 active case at the time and a few close contacts. So this was very heavy on the middle high school. Same with the staff. Our quarantined and causes staff at that time was almost all at the middle high school. So that's where it led us to that kind of 10% threshold of people who are identified as close contacts. And remember last meeting, Jason brought this out, that when you look at the staff attendance that week doesn't look as bad as it may have seemed because the teachers were able to work virtually because we closed. So they were virtually present even though they were close contacts. Jason.
In terms of the dashboard, I don't think we should be like on committee weeks, it's this day. I think if we want to make a change, I'd actually think maybe do like a Monday, Thursday.
Yep.
So that way when they're posted on Mondays, we can get all the weekend data kind of all at once. And then the second update later in the weekend, still similar spacing between the Tuesday and the Friday. And that way we don't have to be, it's just added stress for the people who have to go on and be like, oh, is it a committee week? I have to do it extra.
Yep.
So if we want to have it aligned with these meetings, maybe just Monday, Thursday as a suggestion.
I'm fine with that if the committee would like this to be updated on Mondays and Thursdays.
Anybody have a problem with it being updated? Okay, I don't have any problem with it, so why don't we do that?
And then we'll start in 2 weeks because next Monday is technically the holiday. So we'll start our next meeting Monday the 22nd. We'll have an update for Monday the 22nd. And at that point, we'll go Mondays and Thursdays.
All right.
All right, that's really it for kind of our review of data. I do have the, Jen, I do have, just because I have it in front of me, I do have the breakdown of positive cases over the last 2 weeks in each building. It was 10 students at the middle high school and 1 staff member for 11 total at the middle high school since our last meeting. And it was 6 students and 1 staff member at the elementary school for overall total of 18 people in total, 16 students, 2 staff members.
Okay. When we move on to item D, planning for transitioning learning models.
So I guess I just want to, I'll open up this discussion and then really turn it to the committee. And I was actually looking back at previous meetings and previous presentations, and I saw some notes I had made for our meeting in November when we were talking about this. And just in case, like, hey, I've heard this before, but I actually think it still fits with where I personally stand in terms of where we are and the actions we're taking. Ultimately, I believe the best model is the full in-person model. I think that any other model overall is less effective for most kids. There are some kids who thrive in a remote setting. There's some kids the remote setting might actually be a little bit better for, but that's really a clear minority. The reality is we're balancing managing a public health crisis in the short term against the long-term effects of implementing a hybrid or remote educational model. Everyone's working really hard to make our models as effective as we possibly can. That choice of balancing and what we want, a full in-person return for students, with what is best in this public health crisis, is the ultimate choice or question that's being faced across our society in a lot of settings beyond school. We all want kids back in full time. We all want to ensure that all of our kids have the best educational experiences possible. And we're all struggling with what's the balance. And how do we balance the challenges of the pandemic against the challenges that students are facing educationally? So I want to get kids back in full in person as soon as we can, is in the safest manner we can when it's safe to do so. And what's that balancing threshold? The other piece I want to mention here is we have to remember any movement to full in person, the guidelines and regulations have not changed and do not change. So the bus regulations are still the bus regulations, which I know we can overcome. It's double runs, all that stuff, we can work it out. But I'm actually more talking about my previous discussion in the last topic of the numbers. The close contact guidance is not changing. And the protocols we have to follow in the school are not changing. So the more students you have, the more close contacts you're going to have. And my concern is that moving to full in person prior to seeing a little bit of a continued movement of the numbers downward, because as I highlighted, the numbers are moving downward, is going to put us in the position where I can't predict the future. I don't know. I can only go on the past. And in the past, over the past, as I said, over the past 4, 5, 6 weeks, if we were in a full in-person model at certain grade levels, we'd probably be remote right now based on the number of close contacts that have been created by that full in-person model. And those guidelines and regulations are not changing. So I really do think we need to see a continued trend downward in cases, as we've seen over the last couple of weeks, before we begin to make official decisions to move more students full in person. I'm all for, if the committee would like to, because I know there's been discussions about transitioning back full in person, and we're on the backside of the surge, hopefully, and maybe this is the time to start having those discussions and setting dates. I'm all for the committee asking me to come back in 2 weeks and present a plan to begin to return students full in person. But that's kind of where I am right now, and I just wanted to share that and then open it to the floor for further discussion on this topic.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Okay, Jen, you're recognized.
Thank you. So I completely think that the decision to return to transition models needs to be dealt with at a school level. I don't think there's any one decision that's right as a district as a whole. I think the makeup of the middle high school and the makeup of the elementary school are different. The technologies are different. I've had multiple parents reach out to me with concerns because they have children in quarantine. At the middle high school, their kids are able to log on to a Zoom and participate in class, even though they're at home. That option is not available to our elementary kids. So when we have an elementary student that is quarantined or, because they're close contact or they're exposed, they're participating on their remote hybrid days, but on their in-person days that they now can't attend, they might have a packet of work from the teacher, but there's no interaction with school teachers or anybody. It's like 2 days of radio silence, and they feel a disconnection, and that's really hard especially if it's continuing for multiple weeks. So I think that the elementary school has a much larger disadvantage with how quarantined and close contacts are being educated, and I think that there's a larger inequity of learning happening there. I also happen to know that at the elementary level, sorry.
I was just going to, one point of clarification on that is that in individual circumstances, we have been, if a whole class has been quarantined, so if, for example, a whole class was just quarantined this week, that teacher is teaching that whole class remotely.
Correct. If a whole class is quarantined, then they're going remote, and so that's fine. But when there's
The
individual
ones who aren't
students-
going cry, but I want to make that distinction.
Yeah.
It's not that, so in that situation, if there's a whole class, that teacher will teach remotely.
Yes, and so that's actually going to lead to my next point, where I feel like if we were to return the elementary to a 4-person day, while there may be classes that may have to go into quarantine, at least they could have full remote learning together versus just some students not having any learning. This has been raised to me by multiple people, and I'm currently going through it myself with my family's in quarantine. So I see the point that people have been making to me, and it's a concern. The other concern is from the very beginning said, I'm very concerned with our younger population of students, our kindergarten through 2nd graders, who are early readers or non-readers. Their attention spans are lighter. These kids, I do not think flourish in a remote environment. And so as soon as it is safe to do so, as soon as our teachers are beginning to be vaccinated, I think that there needs to be a priority to bring these kids in. And I do feel like we need to start planning for it now, because if we wait until it's safe to plan for it, then we're behind the curve. You know, if I had to pull a magic date out of my hat, I would say mid-March. You know, let's give us a few weeks post-February vacation, and let's look and see where the numbers are going. We have, you know, multiple meetings in between then where we could vote and make hard decisions. I don't think it'd be appropriate to set a hard date tonight, but I do think that it's appropriate that we say that we want to develop a plan, and potentially resurvey parents and teachers and see where people lie. But I think K through 2 does need to be on our forefront, and I think it does need to be a priority. And we do need to look at getting those students back in. And if that goes well, then 3 through 5 can follow. Middle high school, I think, needs to be a separate conversation, and I'm not sure where I stand with that. I think the risk levels are much different. The population's much different, and there's higher stakes there. So that's where I'm at right now. I don't know if we need a proposal to ask Scott to come back with a formal plan at the next meeting. But I would like us to start developing a formal plan. And I think that we do need to set some dates, hopefully some March dates.
Okay.
I'll just respond. Can I respond to one piece of that?
Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah. So just in terms of the planning piece, absolutely, I understand what you're saying fully. But I also want the community to know that, you know, planning has been happening. If you remember, we actually had a discussion back in November about bringing K1 and 2. We had some proposed dates to do that. We've already looked at class size and movement of teachers and movements of rooms and cafeteria analysis. And we haven't built out a transportation plan yet. And some of that's going to be dependent on getting responses from parents. That's why we said, you know, there's the next steps of the planning, absolutely, that need to happen, that we need to gather information from people on whether they're going to stay remote, whether they're going to come full in person, whether they're going to transition to remote, whether they're going to take the bus. But I do want the community to know that planning has been happening. You know, so there's planning there's plans in place in terms of you know, staff movement, room movement of furniture, all that type of stuff. That planning has begun.
I think that's something that has been brought up several times since the fall, was that we have asked the questions about planning, but you know, the answer we get, and we totally understand it, is that you can only go so far on your plans because you don't know who's going to be sending their kids to school and who's going to be staying remote. You know, so you don't.
Ultimately, once the committee votes a date, or votes a date for the return, you know, that next day the survey would go out. It wouldn't be a survey. It would be a questionnaire saying, you know, we want, sort of like we did right before school started. We need a commitment by the end of the week. You know, what are you going to do? You're staying in this model, you're transitioning models, you're going remote, and those numbers might change the plan. As it actually did, if you remember back in the fall, you know, the numbers worked out well for us in terms of allowing our staff to become the remote teachers at the elementary level, because there were real concerns about using the educational platform, which we really haven't had to do. And we use it as a support, but it's not the primary education for elementary age students. Because when we got the numbers back, the numbers worked to have our teachers become the remote teachers. So, the numbers will play some of that. But as I said, I still want the community to think that like no planning is taking place and we're not prepared to take any step. That was really my point of clarification.
All right, thank you, Scott. Jason or Stephanie, do you have, oh, Jason has his hand up. Okay, Jason, go ahead.
Thank you. And I apologize if some of this is repetitive because Scott said a few things that I have here, but I'll try not to repeat too much. I think when we talked about this in November, one of the reasons we didn't move forward at the time is like Scott said, because the guidance hasn't changed yet. I mean, it's not, we can't just simply say, all right, let's go back. And then that's that. We've been receiving a lot of communications over these last few days. And I want to thank everyone for those. And what I've noticed is that, we have some people who are very vocal and are very passionate about this. But we also have this other side that's very quiet about it, and they're very opposites. You know what I mean? So when I went through, for instance, this is from me counting through my things. I had 14 people reach out about wanting to go back full time and 10 against it. So it's still pretty split, I think, among the town. So, it's difficult. And Jen came up with a lot of good points, especially about K2. I want to get the kids back too. It's best for kids, social emotional learning. But again, there's this piece of the guidelines, and I don't want to make a precedent, maybe is the word, of going against DESE guidelines and recommendations. I think, could we get away with 4 feet in the classroom to get more kids in there? I honestly think we can. My issues when it comes to the transportation, I'm thinking about the lunchroom. It's a maskless time. You still need to be farther apart. We can't have kids eat in the classroom because they're going to be 4 feet apart instead of 6 feet. You need the supervision. So there's just a lot of operational things that I think that needs to be considered above, let's get everyone back in. And I think, as Scott said, though, this process has already started, right? The plans are already out there. We have talks about transportation, what would happen when triple runs. I mean, when we, the parents who choose to pick up their kids, those lines are long right now at the elementary school. I'm saying, I can't speak for middle high school. I just try to even imagine the logistics of almost doubling the number of students being dropped off and picked up. And we just thinking of those things and making sure everything is fully ready to go, and that we're not putting any aspect of the student's day. We're thinking of it from before drop-off to after dismissal and everywhere in between. Timing-wise, I'm also concerned about February vacation. We saw a huge spike from Thanksgiving and Christmas breaks where people traveled, and we had large numbers. And let's be realistic, people will travel during February break. Everyone won't disclose it, but people are going to travel, and we might even see another small incline when we get to the first week of March or so, after the couple weeks after vacation. We thought it might happen for Thanksgiving and Christmas break, and it did. And I'm nervous that it's going to happen again. And we have to kind of go through this cycle again. So I guess that would just be, if you are traveling, please make sure that you're going to follow the state guidelines and you're still going through everything, because by following those and keeping, getting the numbers down and keeping the numbers down will help us get these students back in school quicker. And I think that's an important message. So I'm not against bringing them back in, but I am against rushing it and making sure that every piece is at least partially figured out before we get going. I'm worried about the teachers' mindset. This part of the year on a regular year is almost burnout time. And especially this year where teachers are planning, a year that no one's ever planned for. And then I just want to make sure that there's time for the teachers to be able to adjust to this too, because it's going to be completely different. It's going to be a completely different mindset. There might even be new rosters and everything. There's just a lot of the minutia that we just need to make sure is done. Sorry, I'm just checking my notes here. I don't want to
Yeah, take your time.
Yeah, and my last point, which Scott stole the thunder usually, is the numbers piece. I know we've received a lot of data from people about how low the numbers in Carver have been, which is true, but the numbers within the school have been higher. And with 50, Scott said he didn't think it would be double, but it would be close. I mean, if we were in full person right now, we'd be in triple digits for close contacts, most likely. So I want to, and I remember to finish. The reason why I think Carver is doing relatively well is because we have been wearing masks. We have been doing the distancing. We have been doing the hand washing. People have been staying home when they're sick. Those 4 big things that were really the focus at the beginning of the year. So if we can continue that and get these numbers down a bit more, get through the vacation, and once the pool testing starts, which we'll talk about soon, once the vaccine kicks in, we're going to be back in. And I know that's not really a popular opinion, but I want to make sure it's done right, it's done effectively, and we're not just throwing a bunch of kids in a building and then trying to scramble and figure out the days. Let's be methodical, and let's get them in as soon as we can. Let's do it right. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Let me see. Stephanie, do you have anything? Okay, go ahead. You're on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I know this is such a complicated issue, and I think we've all said from the very beginning that we all agree that there is no substitute for in-person learning for students of any age. I agree that I don't feel that next week would be the right time for us to transition any model for either building, but I would like to hopefully see the numbers trend downward, towards March, to maybe where we can get to the point where we can, start to transition kids in at the elementary school, at least initially. And like Jason had mentioned, and Scott had mentioned, the guidance hasn't changed. The guidance for transportation hasn't changed. The social distancing recommendations, they haven't changed. So we are trying to make sure that our students are safe, our staff is safe, our teachers are safe, our bus drivers are safe, our cafeteria workers are safe, our custodial staff is safe, our nurses are safe. I mean, we're trying to make sure that, we're thinking of absolutely everyone that's working in our districts, even the people at central office. I don't want to leave anyone out. And I really believe that until that guidance changes, that we have to respect that guidance, because I also agree that because our district has been doing such a good job and been so diligent in following the guidelines, I think that's why we've been able to remain in hybrid for as long as we can. We have, with only transitioning to remote for 1 week at the middle high school. I think that if we were to increase numbers, that I share the same fear that we would end up in a full remote situation. And I understand spring sports are going to be starting soon. I mean, how awful would it be if we ended up in a full remote situation right when spring sports were started to get underway, and that had to be jeopardized in any way. And I know that the district has been working behind the scenes in terms of looking forward to when we can potentially transition models or bring students back into school. Scott, my question for you, I know other districts have been putting plans out publicly, as well as target dates. I'm wondering if there's anything in terms of the planning that would make sense or even be appropriate for you to possibly put together on pen and paper, so that parents could actually get a picture of what that would look like in an ideal situation. I understand that you can't possibly list everything, but does that make sense?
Yeah, but from my perspective, we could certainly do that, and we would do that. But from my perspective, we shouldn't do that until
you want to wait till it's closer.
Until the school committee approves such a plan.
Okay, so you want to wait to.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, certainly. If the school committee at the next meeting, if we brought a proposal and the school committee voted in favor of that proposal, we would have a detailed information that would be going out, a detailed plan that would go out to families.
Okay. And also, are you waiting for us to request for surveys to go out? Because I would be very curious.
I was gonna take that as part of the conversation tonight.
Okay.
If you want a survey to go out this week, we can have a survey that goes out this week that we can present at the next meeting to get. Last time we did both students. We did both staff and parents. So if you'd like me to survey parents and staff again, I can do that and bring that as part of the data for the 22nd.
Yeah, I would love to see that happen, and I would also be curious to see some type of a student survey as well, so we can kind of get the pulse of what the students are thinking. I'm not sure what grades that would be appropriate for. You would probably have more insight into that.
What grades would you recommend? So you want me to survey the entire district, K through 12?
Well, I'm just thinking where like at what grades would it make sense for us to hear from the students? I mean, I guess you could probably see if the teachers can incorporate it into their lesson plan somehow, right? I mean, I know the kids at the elementary school always vote for president every year. So just something to think about. I think it would be good if we got some feedback from some of the students. I saw Jason raised his hand. Do you want to jump in,
Yeah.
Jason?
Jason, then I'll get to
Sorry,
you.
Andy.
Jen, okay, go ahead. Yep.
Well, mine was just
Good.
about the student survey. I would say 3 through 12, and the MCAS years. But obviously, we tailor the third, fourth, the elementary one toward elementary students, right? And then,
Yep.
and just make it grade level appropriate. But I think students as young as third grade could handle that, and we might get some good insight from there.
That makes sense. Thank you, Jason. That's a good point.
Jen, did you have something?
Yes, thank you. I am a little concerned that a survey going out without target dates is not going to be as effective. I think, especially given that we've surveyed before, I think that if parents have a date or a time frame in mind, it's going to make, and even teachers, if they know the date and the time frame, it could change, because if they know the potential date or time frame, March 1st is very different from March 15th, which is very different from April 1st. So I almost think maybe we should have Scott come back with a plan with some recommendations, and then maybe survey, because I feel like that timing piece is the most crucial, right? I mean, I think we're all in agreement that timing is the most crucial piece. And Steph, I agree with the points you made, sports and things. That's why I think the conversation around middle high school returning versus elementary is, I think that's why they're very separate conversations. Like that sports piece is definitely a much bigger impact at the middle high school level than it is at the elementary. And Jason, you're absolutely right that the guidance hasn't changed. And I agree with that. I think that the guidance is a lot, we can follow the DESI guidance at the 3 to 5 feet. We can make I think it's easier to do at the elementary level. And I think the middle high school has much bigger challenges with that guidance. And that's why I'm suggesting that we can't make a district-wide decision. We have to make a by school decision. And I'm really focusing on my point is to focus on the elementary and our K through 2 to begin. So.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
So my suggestion would be to only survey elementary at this point. I think that anything we're talking about would be, I think we'd start, and then we talked about this in November, we'd start with, I think any kind of proposal we put together would start with K2, then 3-5, and then the middle high school will be last. And Jen, to your point, I think really maybe we're not talking about the middle high school until April or the 4th term or something like that. So we could survey that group later, certainly, but maybe now for the 22nd for our next meeting, it might be most valuable to get some information from the elementary school. And you could, Jen, you said a target of mid-March. You could use that just general phrase of, the school committee is considering a return of students in person in mid-March. What's your thoughts about that? And do that for staff, for families, and then you could do students 3 through 5. I think Jason's recommendation on 3 through 5 makes sense. That's my thought, but I'm open to whatever the group.
I would be comfortable with that. Are the other school committee members comfortable with that, with a target date of mid-March? nothing set in stone, but to give some parameters to this.
Right. So Stephanie and Jason, would you be agreeable to that, or do you have concerns about mid-March as a tentative date?
Jason's putting his thumb up.
So, okay, Jay, I was looking at Stephanie. Okay.
Oh,
Hey,
yeah.
Jason,
Jason
okay.
did a thumb up. So yeah, I'm fine with the mid-March, for target date, because even with any other district that's put out their plans and published dates, they're going to be fluid. I mean, if we see a spike, after February vacation, and then if we see a spike after April vacation, we'll have to have a discussion about changing the numbers, based on where the case rates are and
Well, most of
and whatnot. So
I know there's a couple districts that are doing after February vacation.
Yep.
Most of the plans I've seen have been from early to mid-March.
it makes sense. Okay, so you need a motion, Scott? You need a motion from us?
I don't think I need a motion or a vote on this. Just some direction.
I think if we're all in agreement, we can,
Just elementary versus middle high school. that's
are
fine.
we talking the entire elementary, Jen? Or are we talking about certain grades? What was your proposal?
I mean, I think, if we're starting with K through 2, we certainly need to survey those parents. We certainly need to survey those staff. But to Scott's point and Ruby's point, they felt pretty strongly last time that the entire elementary be surveyed, because the entire elementary is impacted, even with just the K through 2 initial return. So I think we follow the same setup as what we did in the fall.
I think K5 makes sense personally.
Yep.
All right, so is everyone okay for a potential mid-March return for K through 2 with a survey of K through 5? Okay, everyone,
I'm good with it.
okay. So I wanted to speak on a little bit on this. I wanted to hear all your opinions, which I like to do. I want to thank everybody that sent us all the emails, the communication. I really appreciate it. It was a mixture of everybody on, the fully remote, the stay in hybrid, and the to bring all the kids back full in person. I know we surveyed the parents before, and there was some criticism that we didn't listen to the survey results, which I understand. I understand that. But at the same time, the numbers were going up. They were swinging up at the same time. So I think that's the reason why we went the other direction. This, on the other side, the numbers are swinging down, or hopefully they'll continue to swing down. And yes, fingers crossed. And so it would be different. And I think I agree with you, Jen, that a date does seem to, I wouldn't say put more importance on it, but I think it would make people stand up and say, listen, this could be actually happening. And they give them a window. The other thing is, we have, I agree with Jason's point that, people are going to be going on vacation and going away. And I get concerned because I do see people, out and about, and it's just in their everyday life. And that's just the way it is. And hopefully people are taking precautions, but this is the way it is now in our society. And hey, I'm out there, I try to be as careful as possible, but you have to live your life at the same time. I try to be careful with the older people in my life and myself and my wife and everything. And I imagine people are trying to do the same thing. I'm concerned about communications we've had about people talking about our sports teams and about, specifically contact sports or things like that, and reports about no mask being worn or touching of balls, and even though they try to sanitize their hands. And these kids, for basketball or for whatever, I understand how important sports are, but they're all closer than 3 feet. They're playing games for, tens of minutes at a time, all around the same kids. I know they try to be as careful as possible, but the bottom line is, I don't know, Scott, if you know this or not, but is there a way to tell when we have close contacts if it's coming from a sports
Absolutely.
event?
Obviously, we know every student who's tested positive. We know every student who's been a close contact and why they were deemed as a close contact in general. If it's outside, that happens in school. Something that happens outside of school, it just might be the parents may call us and say they were identified as a close contact to someone outside of school, and they don't have to necessarily give us details about that. But anything that's happening in school, we know all those connections. We have not had a lot of positive cases amongst our sports teams, but we have had them. So we've had a couple in basketball that have led to close contacts and students and the teams being quarantined. I believe we had one in hockey. But yeah, that's something I can get hard information on, but it certainly hasn't been widespread.
Well, I definitely wouldn't want it, we're trying to keep people's identities, their privacy, protect their privacy. So you wouldn't want to put it out, this team or that team, you know what I mean? I don't think anyway, because there are only so many kids on the team. But it would be good to know that information, because if that does start to be a problem, we might have to look at that.
We've had some minimal impacts in sports, but not widespread.
Okay. My other position on it is, I do feel empathy for people that have to work and they're having problems with their employers or can't keep a job because of this, or they have to pay an exorbitant amount for childcare, or someone to come watch the kids, or their kids are left alone or something, because their kids aren't back in school. And I think one of the things that this whole pandemic has shown is how much value there are to our society in schools. They're not just, they're here to learn academics, but it's about socialization. It's about, getting kids help when that on special needs and might need extra help, and time where they might just be left alone or might fall behind. And I think that's a lot of concerns that we're seeing from communications that we have. And there is a very real theory, not theory, it's true, that one of the options that people have is if we do bring kids back, they have the option to keep their kids at home. But the people that don't feel that way can send their kids to school. And we're coming down on that now, and my only real concern on that is, if we have to go full remote, or we lose, teachers to quarantine or kids. I mean, at what tipping point whole district have to go remote if enough people are in quarantine. And so that's a very real concern people need to think about, because we could vote to have everyone go back in full or stagger them, and have them go back. But at some point we might just have to have everybody in remote because we don't have the staff to cover everybody, so it's something else to think about. So these are the reasons we don't rush into these things. And I know it's very frustrating for parents. It's also very frustrating for people that want us to stay the course, because we are questioning these things. It's just a tough position to be in, but it's what we signed up for. And the problem is there's no playbook. But when you think of it this way, a year ago from today, or not exactly today, we were talking about the Spain trip being a real fear that we might have to cancel the trip to Spain, when we were looking at the numbers go up and up and up. I mean, that's how it seems like a lifetime ago. So I just want people to understand that we are listening to you. We do hear, but we're getting opinions from all sides. But at some point, we're going to have to make a decision, and that's what the position is. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents on that, and I want to thank my committee members in the audience for indulging me a few moments. All right, let me get my, so we don't need any other action on that, right, Scott?
No action. So what we're going to do is we'll come back with a plan on the 22nd, and I'll survey students and staff and parents K-5 and students 3-5.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think as close as doing everything we can to get the kids back as fast as we can in this time period would be helpful. And I'm sure that's what you will do. All right, let me see. We're going on to recommendations from the superintendent, item A, pool testing. This will go to our last, prior point too.
The state is making COVID-19 screening testing available for schools using what's called a pooled testing strategy. Pooled testing involves mixing several test samples together in a batch or a pool, and then testing the pooled sample with a PCR test for detection of COVID-19. This approach increases the number of individuals who can be tested using the same amount of resources as a single PCR test. The test is a nasal swab that would be completed in the nurse's office. We would have test results in 24 hours from staff or who participated. If a pooled test is negative, then all individuals within that pool are presumed negative. If a pooled test result is positive, then all individuals in the pool would be retested using the rapid test through the school system to determine who the positive person is. What we're proposing is to test all interested staff on a weekly basis. We surveyed the staff and 81% said they would be interested in participating in a weekly testing program. The nurses have stated that they would be able to manage and oversee the testing. DESE is paying for the program through the end of March. So all costs associated with the program are paid for by the Department of Education through March. The district would have to take up the cost of the program from April through the end of the school year. The cost is approximately $5 a test. And if 80% of the staff participated, that would be 228 tests a week at a cost of $1,140 a week for an approximate 15 weeks for a total cost of approximately $17,100 to do weekly testing of staff. Now, obviously, these are estimates. We could have more staff participate. We could have fewer staff participate. We could determine that managing the program needs some additional resources. So, the numbers I gave you are just a general overview, approximation of the cost. We would be able to charge and pay for this program. Obviously, as I said, the Department of Education is paying for it through the end of March. We would be able to pay for it using some of our CARES Act funds. It's appropriate use of that money, and that's where we'd be able to pay for it for the testing of the staff. Also we could consider, and we'd work with the teachers on this in the committee, eliminating the testing program once the majority of the teachers were fully vaccinated. We don't know when that's going to happen. We don't have a lot of information on vaccination. I think EMS has made this public, that we're working with them in terms of EMS is looking to become a testing location within the town. And then they're willing to support us and work with us in terms of vaccinating all the staff of the Carver Public Schools once they are approved as a site and have vaccines. We just don't have a timeline for that right now, so we're not exactly sure when that's going to occur. We're hoping sooner rather than later, but we appreciate that support, and we'll work with the town on that piece. Ultimately, weekly testing of teachers would help to mitigate the spread of the virus by quickly identifying positive cases amongst the teaching community. Long term, this would also assist us in the staffing the building by reducing the number of close contacts by having positive staff members or positive out of the school earlier. And since the beginning of the year, actually, as we've talked with teachers, they've been asking about investigating testing programs, and we should take advantage of this opportunity since it's being paid for through the end of March. So I would make the recommendation to the committee that they approve us participating in the pooled testing of all staff members. It would be eligible for all staff members of the Carver Public Schools.
I would someone like to make a motion that's for this, and then we can go to discussion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move to implement the DESE pool testing program for teachers and staff for the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Now we'll open it up for discussion. Anybody, Jason, you have your hand up because you want to comment, or?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
If a staff member opts in, are they locked in, or can they opt out?
Yeah, so participation in the program is they would have to participate on a weekly basis. It's not going to be an opt-in, opt-out. You can't test one week, not test the next week. And we'll make that sure that staff's aware of that. The caveat there is they could opt in later. So let's say the first couple of weeks they decide not to do it, but then say, you know what, I think there's a benefit to this. I've decided I want to participate. We would certainly let them join as long as they're going to participate throughout the duration of the program.
And when you say staff, and I'm sorry if you said this, but are we talking all staff when it comes to custodians and food service, everything?
So this will be offered to all employees of the Carver Public Schools.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Jen?
I don't know that I'm comfortable voting to approve this for the entire school year, because I think, Scott, there's some merit to what you said of if the bulk of our staff are able to get vaccinated, say by the end of April, then we may not want to spend this money to continue. So could we amend the motion to say that we will begin the pool testings through the free DESI period and then reevaluate?
I disagree, because I don't believe that just because people are going to get the vaccination doesn't mean you can't get COVID anymore. Just like because you get the flu shot, you can't get the flu anymore. Right? Do we know that, like, for a scientific fact? That's my only hesitation with changing the date. I mean, could we, Scott, at some point come back and say, hey, look, you know, the numbers have been 0 for the past couple of weeks, and could we just make a motion to change it, the dates, or just end the program?
If the committee votes it, then we'd have to bring it back as a recommendation to no longer to discontinue the program.
Participate.
You have to vote it out.
If we put a date on the backside of it, you know, if we say we're going to approve this through April or through the end of the year or whatever date you set, you know, there either have to be another motion in my mind to continue it, you know, because we're expending funds to support the program, or there would have to be a vote to discontinue.
And don't get me wrong, I think the pool testing is great, and I think it's going to make our teachers feel a lot more comfortable. And if it's worth it, then I'm totally willing to spend the money. I just don't want to spend money that our district may not have if it's not needed. So that was just sort of my. I think I've heard the vaccination is about. I don't know the effectiveness. 80% I heard, but I don't know. I think there's debates on how effective it is, but
we could start with a recommendation through April, because the vaccination process anyhow is going to take, whenever it starts, it takes a full month.
absolutely.
So
I have a question. You might have mentioned it, Scott. Maybe I missed it. Maybe I zoned out. The money we expend for this, so this is reimbursable
yes,
through CARES?
correct.
All right, so, Jason?
And I'm looking back, it said this goes for 15 weeks, right? So this would put us to the end of May, or it was the 15 weeks a hard and fast from start to finish.
I based the 15 weeks that's how much the school district would have to pay to go through the end of June.
Oh, I see.
The month of March is being paid for by the Department of Education.
Does DESI have a recommendation on like how long the program should go for?
I think their recommendation is that you test through the end of the school year.
Okay.
I do understand Jen's issue with the money. I tend to be financially cautious like that as well, but I don't feel as bad about it if it's reimbursable, you know. But so do you want to modify your motion, or seeing that it's reimbursable, you want to have the motion stand?
And then we could vote to discontinue the program at any time.
At any time.
I'll retract my suggestion for modification, seeing that it's reimbursable and that we can always re-vote on it later. We can leave the motion as it stands by Stephanie.
Okay, Jason, go ahead.
If in the future we do vote to opt out, should we like give a time frame, like, oh, we're going to opt out? It's not like the next day we opt out, like where we have some like leeway where people know we're opting out by a certain day, or is it just like a hard and fast, you know, we meet on April blank and then on the day after April blank it's done? You know what I mean? Like, do we have to give any, like, almost like, do we have to give the state a 2-week notice period or something that we're done?
Basically the state says really district choice after the pay. In essence, they've said we're paying for this through March 31st, whatever the last day of March. I think it's 31 days of March, and then after that, you know, the district's on their own to make their decisions about what they want to do.
So I think we'll go on,
I
we'll
will
go
say
on the
that-
motion.
I will say that once DESE is no longer paying for the program, then you do have to enter into a contract with the vendor who's providing the pool testing. So we're actually going to get assigned we're going to get assigned a group through the state. There's 3 vendors who are doing this, and then each of the vendors are going to be on the state bid list, and then you're going to create a contract with them from April 1st through a period of time. So that is something we might have to reevaluate when that contract comes up in April, because I don't know, we're not far enough along. In essence, I've just done our initial interest and sent that information to the state, because obviously the school committee hasn't approved this moving forward on this yet. So it was a little time sensitive, so I've done all kind of the initial work. There's another meeting coming up this Wednesday for those shown interest. So I'll get more details on. I haven't seen any details on the requirements of the contract you're gonna have to enter in with the vendor. So it is possible the vendor might say, yeah, you gotta test, you gotta give us at least 3 months. April, May, June.
Right, and I assume like that contract would come in March at some point.
Yeah.
So I mean, can we have, when it's available, can we have that at that whenever it happens? Can we have it at that next meeting?
Yeah.
Just so we can get all the
proper
things
once I
done
know
on
those
one.
details of that contract, I'll let you know.
Perfect. Yeah.
All right, so we have a motion and a second on this. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All right, this is a roll call vote. So I'll start with Stephanie.
Stephanie Clarity, aye.
Jen Pratt,
Jen Pratt, aye.
Jason Greenwood,
Jason Greenwood, aye.
and Andy Cottarelli, aye. So it's unanimous. It's accepted. All right, thank you. Let me see. We move on to request to recycle elementary math books.
So we have old everyday math books for grades 3, 4, and 5 that we're looking to discard and dispose of. Meredith and Mrs. Kelly, our math coach, have actually reached out to several districts. We've been trying to donate them or resell them. We just haven't had any interest. We're using a new math series now, the Bridges math series, and the books are a bit dated. Last year I brought forward the proposal to discard the K2 materials, and the committee approved that at that time. So just looking for a motion to approve recycling these materials.
Okay, is there a motion to recycle?
So
Second.
moved.
Okay, we have a second.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion, concerns on this? Jason?
Have we considered asking if families want these? I have a hard time throwing away math books. I'll be completely honest. There's something in me that just, especially when we have people that are remote, full distance, can we see if there's any families who want these that might just need an extra resource or something? I know you reached out to districts, but and I know they're dated books, but those old books.
Everybody loves everyday math.
Who doesn't? I mean,
that's
just. I'm just saying, is it possible to see if the community wants some? I mean, I don't know.
We can make them available to the community before they're discarded.
Thank you. That's really all.
thank
All
you.
right.
Thanks, Jason, for bringing that up, because I was going to, so thank you for saving me from doing that.
Do we have to modify our motion for that?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think it's just one step before they're actually thrown away. It hurts just to
All
throw
right,
away the math book. That's all.
Are you gonna put that on the website, Scott, or how are you gonna notify the people about that, or that they're available?
We'll send an email to all elementary staff and all elementary families and
Just
say,
hand out a book during the meal times. Here's a lunch.
you want
Here's a
one?
math resource book.
If you want one, we'll get it to you.
Okay, so I know
Thank you.
our meetings are riveting, but I don't think everybody's watching them,
Right.
so.
We'll definitely send out communication to the parents.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on this. Roll call vote. I'll start the other way. Jason Greenwood.
Jason Greenwood, no.
Okay. No?
No.
All right. Jen
It's gonna pass either way, but I can't do it. I cannot throw away these math books. I'm
You
sorry.
read it, okay, forget it.
No, might be a 2-2, might be a split.
All right.
It
You
won't
threw
be.
me on that
Just do
one.
it.
All right, Jen Pratt,
Jen Pratt, aye.
Stephanie Clarity,
Oh, Stephanie Clarity, aye.
okay, Andy Cottarelli, aye as well. All right,
I mean, I knew it was
Passes.
gonna pass, but it's just like it's hard. I can't do it.
That's okay.
We get it. It's
That's okay.
conviction. So that
Yep.
makes sense. Hey, we may have
Yep.
a homeschooling group that might want to take them, so maybe they
Right.
will get repurposed.
It's possible.
okay, let me get back to, oh, I lost my place. Sorry about
Oh,
that.
sorry, that's right at the end of the agenda. We'll move on to
Okay,
school committee.
Motion to adjourn to convene to executive session and,
Oh,
No,
we're
not
not
yet.
done yet.
no, we're not there yet? Okay.
Not yet.
Nope.
We have one more step, reports from the school
Oh,
committee.
right.
So who wants to, anybody have anything they want to add before we adjourn to executive session?
Who's going first? Jason has his hand up.
Jason,
I don't do these very often, but so today through all the emails we've gotten, there was one that came through that had nothing to do with opening. It was about a future event within the schools. And when you drive by the elementary school, you see, depending on what thing on the marquee is showing up, there's always this be kind thing. It says be kind. That's kind of the message. And that's the theme of the elementary school right now. And there are a lot of, there's really two major differing opinions with what we're doing right now. And I just want to remind everyone that if you don't agree with things that we said or we voted on, just please keep in mind, it's not, we're doing it for a reason, right? I want you to be kind about it. To the point where we received anonymous emails because people didn't want their name associated because of potential backlash that they would get from people from the other side. And that makes me nervous that we're in a town where people are afraid to put their name and speak out on something because of how other members in town might take that. And that makes me nervous. And I don't like that division. We're all here working together. So let's just keep in mind, it's okay if we disagree on something right now. We're going to get through this. All right. We all want the kids back. We're going to get through this. So let's just please remember to have some empathy and to be kind to one another. Thank you.
thank you, Jason. Ladies, anyone? No? Oh, Jen, okay.
Yeah, I was waiting to give Stephanie the opportunity to go first. So I 100% agree with everything that Jason just said. I really liked a lot of what Tammy said in her comments from the EAPC at the beginning of this as well. And I really do hope that our teaching staff realizes how important they are and how appreciated they are. And I think that surviving this pandemic, because that's what we're doing, is we're all surviving this, and we're making the best out of a situation. And I know I personally have come to appreciate teachers in a whole new sense and light. And I do not want these conversations for transitions. The last thing I would want is for any teacher to feel like we're being disrespectful to them. I fully want this to be done correctly. I'm hoping they can get vaccinated soon. Pooled testing is going to increase. And I really am trying to balance what's best for our students and also with our teaching staff. And I just want to make that clear because it is a fine line. And as Jason stated, people are very passionate on both sides. And I appreciated every email that I received. I did take the time to read every one, and there were lots. And I really do like hearing from people, and I wish that people would reach out more regularly and not just, flood us right before a school committee meeting, because I would have almost liked more time to marinate on some of these emails, than I had time to, because some of them came in at 3 and 4 o'clock today. And so it didn't give me a lot of time to really, sit with them. But I do appreciate our entire school community and everything that everybody's been doing to help us survive this pandemic. Together we can. And I do think that we have a great district, and, for the most part, our kids are doing well. and they're surviving this. And, you know, hopefully numbers improve and there's an end in sight. But yeah, so those are my thoughts for tonight. That is my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Stephanie has her hand up. You recognize Stephanie.
Thank you. I was struggling with my mouse before, but that's okay. I agree with everything that Jason and Jen said. I want to thank everyone that has reached out to the committee over this past week and prior to that with emails letting us know their feelings and their concerns and their thoughts about you know, this place that we are at with education and with the pandemic right now. And I want to continue to encourage people to continue to please reach out to us. You know, if your student is struggling, if your student is going to be out sick and you want to try to get work for your student during those days, please reach out to, you know, their teacher. My son was home today, so I reached out to his teachers this morning and said, hey, you know, it's supposed to be his in-school day, but I'm keeping him home. You know, what can he do? And they very quickly gave me some guidance. So he had some things that he could work on at home today. So I found that that was very helpful. So I just want to encourage people to keep that line of communication open with the teachers. You know, and also just to continue to try to all work together the best that we can. And if parents feel that their students need more in school in-person days, to also, you know, to reach out to the teachers, to reach out to building administration, you know, have those conversations, reach out. I know there are supports there. No matter what we do, it's not going to be perfect. Even if we were to say, okay, everyone transition to full-time next Monday, the transition wouldn't be perfect. But if we all work together, we can all, you know, come through this in a more positive manner. And also, sorry, I wrote down some notes because I didn't want to forget. Yeah, okay. Jason said one of my notes was to please be kind, because I know that everyone is passionate, and I do see that be kind flashing at the elementary school, and I love to see that. I think it's a good reminder for all of us, because everyone's dealing with the situation differently, and we don't know how people truly feel or what they're truly dealing with at home, and you know what their stress levels are, or what their triggers can be. So I just want to please remind people to be respectful, because comments, emails, they get back to people, and they can be hurtful to some others. Something that you may say or write on a comment, you may not think is hurtful to someone, but it could be really hurtful or devastating to someone on the receiving end. So I just want to ask people to please, you know, be mindful and make sure that what you say, you know, it comes from a good place, because we need to, I think, all try our best to put our best foot forward right now, so we can continue to work together and hopefully get everyone back in school safely sooner rather than later. And I hope people will attend the drama performance that's coming up. I didn't write down the information, but I'm sure it will be posted on the school's website, right, Scott?
Yes, absolutely.
For people to go find whoever's here. So I just want to also continue to encourage people to support the schools as much as they can. I know that the Music Boosters just had I think a clothing drive, and the athletic booth. No, that's the Carver, the middle high school PTO is doing their March Madness. So there are ways that families can, you know, support the students and programs and things they're trying to do in the schools to bring some joy within our community and to share that with others. So that is all. Oh, happy Valentine's Day to everyone. And stay safe. Oh, and have, I guess, a good President's Day, right? And a good February vacation. So everyone enjoy the break and stay safe, make smart decisions, get outside, go for a walk, play in the snow, right? Build a snowman. Anyway, that's it.
There you go. All right. Thank you for everybody. I appreciate all your participation. As always, I want to thank Area 58 for getting this video on to broadcast at a later time and on the YouTube channel. I want to thank all our administrative staff and all of our friends that help us all the time, Gina and Meredith and Ron and everybody, and Ron, you really shouldn't talk so much. You know, I was going to tell you that you're going to have to be quiet this meeting. You know, but we didn't have anything for you on the agenda. Sorry. But thank you for coming anyway. And I'm not going to go into anything further. Any other comments that I already made? I already talked enough, so I will take a motion to adjourn, to go into executive session, not to return for the purpose of discussing strategy for respect to collective bargaining.
I'll make a motion to adjourn from regular session and not to return, but to go into executive session to discuss collective bargaining.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so
Jane?
we'll call a vote.
Jason,
Stephanie
yeah.
Clarity. Oh, she didn't hear me. Stephanie Clarity,
Stephanie Clarity, aye.
Tim Pratt,
Jen Pratt, aye.
Jason Greenwood.
Jason Greenwood, aye.
You didn't vote no on that one, did you?
I thought about it just for a heartbeat, just for the laughs, but I didn't do it.
And Andy Cotterelli, aye. Oh, go ahead,
I did that
Stephanie.
one.
You did do
Yep,
that
I
one.
did.
Okay, well, that's unanimous. Thank you very much, everyone. We are adjourned at 8:56.